Hey YouTube, Ed here with Jack of all trades and welcome to another video. So what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about the iconic Marlin 336 lever action rifle. So let's get right into the video. And welcome back. So yes, today what we're going to talk about is the Marlin 336 lever action rifle. And when you say 30-30 to anybody at deer camp, talking about the 30-30 Winchester cartridge, what is the first thing that comes to their mind? Either a model 94 Winchester lever action rifle or the model 336 lever action rifle. These two rifles are kind of synonymous with the 30-30 caliber cartridge, or the 30-30 Winchester cartridge, I should say. If you say 30-30 Winchester, people think one of these two rifles typically automatically. And before we move on, if you're liking these kind of videos and you're liking this kind of content, you'd be doing me a huge solid by going down and hitting that like and subscribe button. Make sure you ring that notification bell so you get notified of upcoming videos. And then let me know in those comments if you're liking this kind of content. The comments are the best way to let me know, and I will certainly do more of it. So the Marlin 336 rifle. This rifle has been in production by Marlin since 1948, and though it comes in a wide variety of barrel lengths and calibers, it is most commonly known as a 20 or 24-inch lever action rifle that's either chambered in 30-30 Winchester or 35 Remington. And like I stated earlier in the video, the 336 Marlin is kind of synonymous when you're talking about 30-30 Winchester ammunition. They just kind of go hand in hand. So a little history behind the Marlin 336. The Marlin 336 kind of is based on the design of L.L. Hepburn's 1893 lever action rifle. L.L. Hepburn is actually more famous for the Marlin Hepburn sight, but he did design the 1893 rifle, which was in production from 1893 until 1936. Then in 1936, they made some refinements to the 1893 rifle, and they called it the Model 1936 or just the Model 36. In 1936, when they came up with the Model 1936, there was some fairly notable design changes to it. Most of those were centered around the buttstock and the forestock and the rear sight of the rifle. And when you compared the Model 1936 or the Model 36 to the Model 94 Winchester, which was predominantly the most popular lever action rifle of the time, the Model 36 was just a little bit heavier, but it was also a little simpler in design from the Model 94 Winchester. Then in 1948, the Model 36 was redesigned and redesignated to the Model 336, which is the gun we all know and recognize today. That rifle was sold under Marlin, it was sold under Glenfield, it was sold under Westernfield, it was sold under J.C. Higgins, and many other variants. But the 336 did undergo its major design changes in 1948. Then in 2007, Remington Arms took over manufacturing of the 336, and then later in 2023, that manufacturing responsibility was transferred over to the Ruger Arms Company, and they're the ones still producing the 336 today. Now, while most 336s offer a 20-inch barrel with a full-length magazine tube on it, there are many other variants out there that may have straight stocks on them as opposed to the traditional pistol grip stock on them. They might have different barrel lengths to them, anywhere from 16 to 24 inches. And some of the models even cut the magazine tube short to reduce the amount of weight that the rifle was, and they would have like a half magazine tube on them. Didn't hold as much ammo, but then at the same time, the weight was dramatically reduced as a result of that. In 2007, when Remington Arms took over production of the Model 336, kind of marks a low point in history for most Marlin aficionados. And that is also kind of a time in which the 336 quality took a pretty dramatic nosedive. And the 336 lost a lot of popularity in that period from 2007 to 2023 when Remington Arms was making this rifle. Then in 2023, when Ruger took over manufacturing, the quality and the quality control of the rifle seemed to go up a little bit, and these newer 336 rifles that Ruger is producing seem to have brought those Marlin owners back into the fold and wanting to buy those Ruger rifles because the quality is a little bit better than they were when the Remington company was making them. And as a result of that, those Ruger rifles are not coming cheap. Most of the Ruger rifles sell for $1,200 or more. They are coming at a premium price, but as I understand it, that quality is dramatically improved. And in this day and age, try to find a decent rifle that sells for under $1,000, especially in a lever action design. They're kind of expensive, and that's kind of the way things are going, unfortunately. To date, though, there have been more than 4 million Marlin 336 pattern rifles produced and sold in the world. It's an extremely popular rifle, and it sure has given the Winchester Model 94 a run for its money. Sired by the 1893 and the Model 36, the 336 is very easily distinguishable from its predecessors, most notably by the ejection port, which is machined into the side of the receiver. The 1893 and the Model 36 didn't have this ejection port machined into the side because the bolt, or the locking bolt, or the breech bolt of the rifle actually took up the whole side of the rifle, and that actually was the cover, if you will. That whole bolt sliding forward is what sealed up the breech. It was very large, and it was very, very bulky and blocky style because it was square. In 1948, when the 336 came into being, there were some pretty dramatic changes to it, not least of which was the machining of this ejection port and the addition of a round and chrome-plated breech bolt. That was a pretty big major design change to it. Additionally to the bolt changes, there was also some changes to the shell carrier. There were some changes to the extractor. They improved the extractor. And then Marlin also removed the flat spring as the main spring and the trigger spring, and those springs were replaced by coil springs, which are much more desirable than the flat springs. They seem to last a little longer, they've got a little better power, and they do the job just a little bit better than the flat springs did, which all of the Marlin predecessors had. Regardless of the changes that happened with the 336, one thing that hasn't changed is the fact that they're building the receivers and all the major parts out of steel forgings. And that's something that Marlin has done since the 1893 was being produced and has carried on all the way through the 336 and is being done in modern day production today. Now, what really sets the 336 apart from the Model 94 are two basic things. One, the side ejection. The Winchester Model 94 has top ejection. The other thing is the fact that the Marlin 336 has a flat top receiver. These two things that really set the Marlin apart from the Model 94 Winchester makes the Marlin 336 absolutely ideal for mounting telescopic sights to it. If you find a 336 in the deer woods, 9 times out of 10, it's going to have a scope mounted to it. If you find a Model 94 in the deer woods, it's more likely than not it's going to be an iron sight, because the 336 is much more adaptable to having scope sights on it, and just because of that flat top receiver and because of the side ejection of spent shell casings. Then in 1956, Marlin started to incorporate their micro groove technology into their barrels. Now, Marlin went to this proprietary barrel making method for a couple of reasons, not least of which is it cut down on production time for the rifle barrels, and it also cut down on the amount of wear of the machine tooling, which had a nice after effect in that you had very consistent results from barrel to barrel to barrel because the machine tooling didn't wear out as much. And if you got one barrel off of one 336 compared it to another, the barrels are very, very close in diameter and quality, and they're just very consistent from rifle to rifle. Another thing that the micro groove technology gave the 336 is Marlin claims that the bore is very concentric from one end to the other. It's also very, very smooth, which did a couple of things. One, it improved gas sealing between the bullet and the barrel, and two, reduced the amount of fouling. And those are all very desirable things because it made the 336 a little bit easier to clean, and it made it a little more consistent shooter, made a more consistent shooting rifle from shot to shot because the barrel didn't foul up as bad. Additionally, the 336 design lends itself really well to easy cleaning in the field. All you have to do is remove this lever screw right down here, and the lever, you can remove the lever right out, and then that allows you to slide the bolt out of the back side of the receiver and also remove the extractor. And why is that important? Because that allows you to clean the rifle from the breech to the muzzle. And anybody who knows anything about guns knows that it is more desirable to go from the breech end when shoving in cleaning rods and brushes and things of the like, as opposed to coming in from the bore. because if you come in from the bore, you have a much greater chance of actually nicking or wrecking the crown and the muzzle rifling of the rifle, which is absolutely critical to good accuracy. So it is always more desirable to come in from the breech. And as seeing as how the 336 is so easy to disassemble in the field, it allows you to do that breech end cleaning and keep that muzzle crown in a pristine condition to keep that accuracy as high as possibly can. The other side effect to cleaning from the breech end of the rifle is the fact that you're not getting all of those contaminants and things down inside of the receiver and the mechanism of the rifle. Thusly, it keeps the mechanism and the receiver area of the rifle much, much cleaner as a result. Now, for several years, Marlin produced the 336 in other varying kinds of brand names like Glenfield, Western Field, J.C. Higgins, things of that effect. And they did that for the large department store chains. They sold those, like the Glenfield rifle, you typically found that at maybe a J.C. Penney or a Western Auto or a Kmart. Even Walmart sold the Glenfield version. You also found the Western Field version out there. There was a variant and a model made for coast to coast. And they did this for two reasons. One, the guns themselves were a little less expensive, and that was because they put different materials in those guns than they did in the actual Marlin rifles. Things like the stocks themselves were not made out of walnut. They were made out of birch, and they were stained to a walnut color. Birch is a much less expensive wood, and it's much cheaper to manufacture, and so that was ultimately able to reduce and lower the price. The other thing that they did was they didn't get quite so refined with the cleanup of the machining of these rifles. Just a little bit less refined, which reduced production time and drove the cost of those rifles down. And the other reason that Marlin did that is because they didn't want those large department store chains to be selling actual Marlin brand rifles. They kind of reserved those Marlin brand rifles for their smaller, kind of elite, if you will, gun dealers. They wanted those dealers to be selling the Marlin rifle, and then the big department box store chains to be selling the Glenfield, the Western Field. And though those rifles did have varying degrees of quality to them, and the parts that they might have used, like for the stock, were maybe not quite as good, mechanically, the guns were identical. All the internal mechanisms were the same. It still had the same forged steel receivers. They still had the same chrome-plated bolt. The shell lifters, all of that stuff internally on the mechanisms were exactly identical. In fact, a lot of those parts are interchangeable between models. Along with changing the brand name and things like that, they also changed the models. And I'm going to look at my notes here so I don't mess it up. So like the J.C. Higgins models, they were model 45s and 50s. The Glenfield models, they were kind of the 30 series. You know, they had different variants. They had a 30S and a 30C. Those were the Glenfield models. And then they had a certain set of rifles that were made just for the Walmart brand rifles. And they were like the 336W and the 30A, I think it was the AW or the 30AS, something like that, which was a package rifle that had a scope, a padded sling, and things like that. So they did not only change the brand to Glenfield and things like that, but they also changed the model numbers as well. So like for a good example, this rifle right here that's sitting on the stand, this is a Marlin 336W, which designates that this rifle was actually sold at Walmart. This rifle down in front here, this is a Glenfield Model 30. This rifle was actually purchased at a Kmart in my hometown. I know the owner of this rifle. He's owned it since he was a kid, and it was purchased at Kmart in my hometown. And he's hunted with this rifle since day one. This rifle right here, this is actually a Marlin branded rifle, but it is a model 03030, which designates it as a coast to coast brand. Now there were other coast to coast Marlins later on that were models C3030, and that C designates the fact that it was sold at coast to coast. But this is a coast to coast rifle right here. This rifle is a Glenfield that was actually sold at a Kmart. And then this is the Walmart variant of the 336, all sitting right here on the table. Oddly enough, none of these guns are mine. I had to borrow these guns to make this video. You would think I would have a 336 Marlin, but I don't. You would also think I have a Model 94 Winchester, but I don't. But I digress. Then in 1983, the Glenfield, Western Fields, J.C. Higgins, all those models just went away. There's a lot of rumor as to why that happens, but the predominant rumor out there is that those big box store chains got big enough where they were actually able to tell Marlin, hey, if you want us to sell your rifles, you're going to stop selling them as Glenfields and Westernfields, and you're going to start calling them Marlins. And that's the predominant theory behind it. But ever since 1983, every 336 that came out of the Marlin factory was labeled as a Marlin rifle. And even to this day, the Marlin 336 comes in a ton of different variants, and it has come in a ton of different variants over the years. And again, I'm going to refer to my notes. There was an XLR series. There was a model 336 SS, which was a stainless steel. There was a model 375, which I believe had a different caliber in it. I don't recall which it is. The model 336 ER, which, as I understand it, if you've got a model 336 ER, you have a highly collectible Marlin 336. You have the model 444, the model 444. They still make they did make a model 1894 and an 1895. There's a 450 Marlin. There's various versions of the guide gun. There's the Marauder, the Trapper, the Youth model. I mean, it could go on and on and on. There's just a whole bunch of different variants of the Model 336, and that's due to the popularity and the functionality and the reliability of the 336 action. Now, determining the year of manufacture for your Marlin 336 or your Glenfield rifle is a little more difficult than, say, the Winchester line. You know, in my Winchester video, I actually provided a site. All you had to do was type in a serial number, told you exactly what year your rifle was made. With the 336, it's not quite that simple. The 2023 and later versions that were all made by Ruger, those are quite simple. All you have to do is go to the Ruger website. You can type in the serial number. It'll tell you when that gun was made. Earlier than that, there was different ways of determining it. Way back in the early years, there were actually letters incorporated into the serial number, and those letter markings would actually tell you what year they are. I'll try to post some links in the description down below to help you guide how to find that out. And then there was a period of time there where you took the serial number of your rifle and you took the first two numbers of the serial number, you subtracted those numbers from 100, and that gave you the year. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, your first two numbers of your serial number were 19. You would subtract 19 from 100, and that would give you 81. So that means your rifle was manufactured in 1981. Very, very convoluted way of trying to determine the serial number and the year make or the year of the model that you have. But there are ways out there to do it. Just go to Google and do various bunch of searches, and there's a lot of literature out there on how to determine what year your Model 336 was made. Now, regardless of what year your 336 was, whether it was a Marlin, whether it's a Glenfield, whether it's a coast to coast, regardless of all of that, there is no mistaking that at the end of the day, the 336 Marlin rifle is highly recognizable. It has definitely found a place in the deer woods, and I would classify this rifle as a true hunter's rifle. And as a bit of a testament to how good the 336 is and how it stood the test of time is the fact that even if you buy one of these used, you are absolutely paying no less than $500 for one of these rifles. Probably paying closer to $800 to $1,000 even for a used rifle. And when you can buy a brand new one for $1,200, that's a little bit of a testament to how good these rifles really truly were. If you buy a Marlin 336 and it's less than $500, you either got a really good deal or the gun is beat to hell and is just in really poor shape. It's probably broken or has a problem with it of some sort. You can't hardly touch these rifles for under $500. With that, let's go ahead and wrap this video up. Now, if you're liking this kind of content, you'd be doing me a huge solid of hitting that like and subscribe button down below. Let me know in those comments if you like these kind of videos and give me some suggestions. I've had subscribers suggest that I should do one on a Winchester Model 88. That video is coming. I know somebody who has one. It's unfortunately not me. Somebody else wanted a video on a Winchester Model 100. That's going to happen. Another video on the Henry rifle, and I'm going to do that as well because I now have a Henry rifle. We have some more videos coming up. I've even got a couple of rifles that you probably never heard of that we're going to do a couple of videos on. So stay tuned to the channel and let me know in those comments if there's something specific you want me to review or talk about or test fire, and I will certainly try to get that done. With that, this is Ed from Jack of All Trades. As always, thank you for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next video.